So, going back a little bit in time to remind you how we got here. Who are these folks?
Romanovs.
They're the Romanovs. Nicholas II, Tsarina Alexandra. These four girls are the Grand Duchesses. They're four daughters, and the Tsarevich Alexei. Tsarevich, when you add it to a Russian word, just says baby or tiny. So he's the baby czar, the tiny czar is the crown prince. Okay, this is taken shortly before the Civil War, and about 2 years before they're all departed from this earth. Okay. Handsome family. In 1905, there had been the uprising, partially as a result of disappointment over the loss of the Russo-Japanese War. This photograph, here in the foreground, what's going on?
Firing squad.
Who is it? It's not a firing squad.
It's the secret.
It's the line of
Secret
police guarding the palace, and what's going on off here in the distance?
Rebellion.
The people are already running, so what do you suppose has already happened?
Shot.
They've already shot. They've already got Bloody Sunday going on. Okay? The Tsar put this rebellion down, but he did not deal with the causes of the rebellion. He believed in absolute power, in autocracy, in the right of the Romanovs to rule Russia. And so, while he granted them a Duma, he took away all the power. He accepted no limits on his power. And so he basically put the lid back on the boiling pot, but did not turn the heat down. So what's eventually going to happen when you do that? It's going to boil over. World War I comes along. This is Nicholas II here in the center. He went to the front. See, the generals who lost the Russo-Japanese War are by and large the same generals who are in command of the Russian army when the war begins in 1914. Things go so badly, especially at, what was that disastrous battle? Tannenberg, the Battle of Tannenberg. 90,000 Russians dead in one day. That is not an acceptable loss rate. Even if you're Russian, you have endless men or cannon fodder to throw. So in 1915, Nicholas, with his vast 0 months of military training, goes to the front to lead himself. He believes that his mere presence at the front, which by the way was not actually at the front, he was miles behind, safe. He believed that his front would rally the troops and fill them with patriotic pride and fervor, and they would rise to defeat the German Hun. When he left St. Petersburg, he left his wife, Alexandra, in charge of Russia's domestic affairs. Nicholas, as much of a waffler as he was, and his well-known tendency to take the take the advice of the last man he spoke to, left Alexandra, the German princess and Russian Tsarina, in charge. The Russians had no great love for her. She spoke Russian, but with a heavy German accent, which was always reminding them that she was not one of their own. Her first loyalty was to her husband and her children, then to Russia. But the people didn't see it that way. They never trusted her. And so when she relies heavily upon Rasputin, who they do not trust either, especially the nobility, that becomes troublesome for Nicholas. So here we are in December of 1916. And this is the dude hanging out with the Tsarina. By the way, not that many Rasputin memes out there on the internet, strange as it may seem. All right. Rasputin, the holy man, has come to St. Petersburg. We talked yesterday about why Alexandra was so devoted to him, her mother's guilt, her mother's desire to make her children's lives, and her son's life in particular, pain-free, as easy as possible, and Rasputin's seeming ability to make that happen. We talked about his bizarre kind of animal magnetism for women. If you look at this picture, other than this creepy homeless dude, looks like, wait a minute, which one's oh, that's Rasputin, okay. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 other guys in the picture, and then all of these ladies. And this is upper crust, okay. Rasputin has probably not bathed for days, if not weeks, and they're all packed in this room with him, and they're like quite close, right? It's, I mean, she's practically got her head on his shoulder. Yeah. I cannot begin to understand that attraction, nor explain it to you. I don't get it. My guess would be it's something along the lines of it's exotic, or the women who choose to stay with abusers, maybe something like that is kind of going on in their psyches. I don't know. This is a modern day picture of the Yusupov Palace. This is the palace of Felix Yusupov and his wife and his parents, because he's still a young man. It is on the banks of the Mishna River in St. Petersburg. It is still there today. The color is historically accurate. Felix Yusupov is a cousin of the Tsar. He is one of a group of nobility who have become absolutely convinced that Rasputin must go, for the good of the Tsar and the Tsarina, for the good of the monarchy, for the good of Russia. At 11 in the morning, Rasputin wakes and goes to the bathhouse under heavy guard. Remember, the video told us that the Tsar had him under protection. He returns home, and he's got an appointment with an author who's come to talk to him. She has a strong interest in the occult. And in the process of their conversation, she imparts to him how concerned she is about the damage he's doing to the royal family and their reputation, and is trying to convince Rasputin that maybe he should just kind of go. He's incredibly bummed after she leaves, and he takes to the bottle. He drinks quite a bit of wine. Somewhere along in there, an anonymous call is received that warns him of an assassination plot against him. That makes him drink more, to the point where he's unable to take a phone call a little later in the afternoon. In the early evening, a noblewoman whose name I won't trouble you with, she is a friend of the Tsarina's and has been healed by Rasputin. She arrives with a gift on behalf of Alexandra. Alexandra and the children have been to Novgorod, and they've brought back this religious relic, which Alexandra and the children have all signed on the back for Rasputin. So the noblewoman gives him this gift from Alexandra, and he's, exclaiming over it, and conversation ensues, and he mentions that he happens to have been invited to the Yusupov Palace that evening. And she's like, "Oh, really?" And he says, "Yes, I'm going to meet with Felix and Irina." And she says, "Ah." And he says, "But not until midnight." And she's like, "What? That's odd. I don't think you should go." And he says, "Yeah, okay. I promise I won't go." So she leaves. Eventually, later in the evening, the guards are dismissed, and then the interior minister, Protopopov, remember hearing about him in the video yesterday? The incompetent one, who Alexandra said, no, keep him. Rasputin says he's good. He drops by. Why would he wait to drop by until after the guards had left? Nope. Rasputin was why he had his position in the government. Why would he kill him? Because you don't want your appearance at his apartment in the official record kept by the guards at the bottom of the stairs. So he drops by. The purpose of his visit is to tell Rasputin that there is a plot against his life. Please, don't go out tonight. I know your guards are gone, just stay home. Rasputin says, "Okay, I'll stay home." Protopopov leaves, and Rasputin goes and takes a bath. I know, shocking. Twice in one day. He goes and he takes a bath. When he gets out of the bath, he brushes his hair and his beard. Combs them both all nice and straight and clean. This for a guy who could usually find leftovers from 3 days old in his beard. Okay? Dresses in nice, clean, freshly laundered clothes and puts on a brand new pair of boots. In fact, the boots are so new and so tight his maid has to help him get them on. Then he lays down to rest a little bit. Meanwhile, at the Yusupov Palace that morning, Felix gets up, he goes to work, he's studying a bit, he's got a military exam to study for the next, or to take the next day. While he's out, the carpenters are there, and they're working, turning one of the basement rooms into kind of a man cave, a bachelor's den, if you will. Okay. The Yusupov and 4 conspirators meet at the palace at 11 at night. They go down into the man cave and they lay out 3 cream cakes and 3 chocolate cakes. And Yusupov goes over to a chest, he pulls out a drawer and he takes out a little wooden chest. He opens it up and takes out a container of crystal cyanide. He gives it to the doctor, who's one of the conspirators. The doctor gloves up, grinds it up into a really fine powder. They take the cakes and they slice them and they open them up. The doctor takes the cyanide powder, sprinkles it in the middle of all of these cakes, and they seal them back up and they put them up on the cake tray. They also are planning to poison 2 of the 4 wine glasses that are out with liquid cyanide, but they decide to wait because they're afraid it might evaporate before Yusupov gets back with Rasputin. So the doctor says, I'll do it right before you get back. Okay. So the doctor says even if it doesn't get done, it's no big deal. There's enough cyanide in any one of those cakes to kill Rasputin many times over. So the doctor then puts on a chauffeur's hat and coat and drives Yusupov over to Rasputin's apartment. Well, why didn't the regular chauffeur drive him over? Because Yusupov has sent most of the servants away and told the rest of them to stay in their rooms. Okay. So he drives over to Yusupov's apartment. Yusupov rings the bell. Rasputin greets him at the door. He's a little surprised. Rasputin says, oh, the children are all asleep. By that he means the servants have all gone to bed. Invites him in. So they're chatting a little bit. Rasputin's wrong. There's a maid who's awake. She peeks out from the kitchen. She recognizes Felix Yusupov. Rasputin puts his coat on. They go back to the palace. When they pull into the palace, the sound of the music is coming from upstairs. There's a gramophone on playing Yankee Doodle. Felix says, oh, oops, I'm sorry. Irina was having a party. She must not have gotten rid of all the guests yet. Why don't you come with me downstairs? We'll have a glass of wine while she gets rid of them. Rasputin's like, well, okay. He had come to have a private meeting with Felix and Irina to talk about mystic religious things. So they go downstairs, they sit down. Really awkward, halting conversation ensues. Okay? Rasputin is stuck with Felix when he's really interested in Irina. Felix has to be in an incredibly awkward state of mind. You know, hey, how do I make small talk with a guy I'm trying to murder? What should we talk about? How'd you sleep last night? I don't know. So Felix offers Rasputin a biscuit, and he takes it. Now, did we poison any biscuits? No. Unpoisoned biscuit. Rasputin is not one to turn down food generally. He's always hungry. He's definitely always thirsty, if you know what I mean. So Felix brings the cake tray over and sets it in front of Rasputin and says, here, some delicious desserts. Go ahead, have one. Well, it turns out, we know from interviews with Rasputin's daughters, that Rasputin did not have a sweet tooth at all. He disliked sweets, so he declines. If you are Felix sitting across the table, and the man that you intend to murder with poison has just declined your poisoned sweet cakes, what has just happened to your heart rate? Are you getting a little flushed, a little sweaty palmed, a little freaking out? So I have to imagine the conversation went like, no, here, have one. No, thanks. No, have one. They're great. No, have one. Have one. Rasputin eventually eats not one, but 2 of the cakes. The guy's cyanide is an incredibly deadly poison. It's also a poison that you can't just slip to someone. It has a distinctive smell, smells of almonds. It has a distinctive bitter taste. That's why they put it in the very sweet food, to kind of try and mask that. Rasputin ate 2 of these cakes. Remember what the doctor said? 1 should kill him many times over. So I've got to think Felix is on the edge of his seat going, Okay, we'll go ahead and have another one. He's expected Rasputin to go and fall over dead in a heartbeat, foaming at the mouth. No such thing. Rasputin proclaims himself to be very thirsty, so Felix brings him a glass of wine. They toast, they each drink a glass of wine out of the 2 unpoisoned glasses. Rasputin says, "Oh, that was great. May I have a glass of Madeira?" It's a different kind of wine, it's a sweeter wine. And he hands his empty glass to Felix. And Felix is like, "Yeah, sure, I'll get you one. Let me just get you one from these clean glasses." No, that's all right. This one's already dirty. It's fine. I don't care. Just pour the Madeira. No, that's all right. I've got clean glass. No, really, just use it. Okay. So he takes Rasputin's dirty glass, which isn't poisoned, and has to figure out how he can switch it. Oops, dropped it. Oh, clumsy me. I guess I'll just have to use one of these over here. Gives him one of the poisoned glasses. Fills it full of Madeira. Done. And Felix is like,
He's a holy man.
he is a holy man. Felix believes in mysticism. And the fact that Rasputin hasn't gone and died is freaking him out a little bit. Talk about sweaty palms. 2 poisoned cakes, poisoned wine. This is not good. Okay. So, Yusupov makes some kind of lame excuse and runs upstairs to tell his conspirators that the poison isn't working. By the way, the stairway down into this room, spiral. So Yusupov runs upstairs. And he's like, guys, he's not dead. Well, did you feed him the... Yes, I fed him the... Well, what... I don't know why he's not dead. He's just not dead. Okay, well, go back and get him. He'll die. He'll die. Okay. Hey, how you doing? When he gets back downstairs, here's Rasputin. Yep. Here's Mail. She's sick.
Sick? Alright, thank you.
So, here's Rasputin. Man, I am so tired and thirsty. I'm just so thirsty. Gets him another glass of Madeira. Perks up. Hey, I'm all right. Let's go see the gypsies. It's like 2 a.m. And Yusupov goes, no, it's too late to go see the gypsies. The gypsies are the prostitutes, by the way. Rasputin's like, all right, I suppose so. Yusupov continues to sit and watch him. Nothing. So we have to think about some reasons why the cyanide hasn't worked. One, it could have been old. It could have been not potent enough. Or, probably the more likely, cyanide in order to work has to mix with your digestive juices. What did Rasputin eat?
Cake, he doesn't usually eat cake.
A biscuit that was unpoisoned. Lots of carbs. And then 2 cakes. Lots more carbs. So chances are the cyanide was in there and it was working, but it was not going to be as potent because it had been so mixed in with all of those carbs and the juices weren't getting right at it. I mean, otherwise, Rasputin's a guy who can drink and party all night long, so for him to be like, I'm tired, was not normal. So Yusupov waits for a little while longer. They drink another glass of Madeira. Not happening. So 2 a.m, Yusupov runs back upstairs and he's like, guys, it's not working. They're like, okay, all right, we're just going to have to go charge him and just do it. Full frontal attack, take him out. And Yusupov's like, all right, yeah, that's it. Wait a minute. He's going to see us coming. 5 guys running down a flight of spiral stairs is not exactly a subtle entry of 5 guys. He says he's going to see us coming, he's going to freak out, it's going to make it more difficult. I'll do it. So he goes to his study, he gets a Browning revolver, goes downstairs. He goes in this basement room and this is the actual photo of the basement room as it is today. They've redoctored it up, and clearly that's not the actual people. I know. But this is the way that it was done up. So he comes in, And he goes over and he stares at this crystal crucifix, which is on one of the tables. And he stands there staring at this thing for so long that Rasputin goes, dude, what's up with you? It's weirding him out a little bit. Rasputin is weirded out a little bit. Okay? Do you understand the high standard of weirdness that has to be going on here? Okay. So, Yusupov is, what he's actually doing is he's bought into this mysticism thing, and he believes that the reason that Rasputin isn't dead from the cyanide is because he's being protected by some kind of mystic shield. And all of his learning has taught him that if he can get Rasputin to pray to a holy object, that will break the shield and he will be vulnerable. So he stands there and he's looking at the crucifix. So finally it's so awkward that Rasputin gets up and walks over and stands beside him looking at the crucifix. So Yusupov pulls the gun out and he's got it behind his back. And Rasputin's like, yeah, that's a pretty crucifix, but I think the inlaid chest that it's sitting on, that's prettier. And Yusupov says to him, Grigory, you would do better to look at the crucifix and say a prayer, trying to get him to pray over a holy object, right, to make him vulnerable. Rasputin turns and looks at Yusupov, and they have this very awkward moment where the assassin is looking into the dude who's about to be killed, and they both know what's going on. Yusupov's like, ah! Pulls out his gun, shoots him in the chest, Rasputin goes down. The other guys who were upstairs hear the gunshot, and they're like... Okay. They come running downstairs, they quick get him up off the bare rug, keep the blood stains off. Like, woo! All right. So phase 2 of the plan. Strip him down. One dude puts on his clothes. The other 2 go back with him, drive him back to his house so that Rasputin left. Now he's coming home safe and sound, right? They're going to make it look like that. On the way back to the palace after Rasputin goes home, they're going to drop all of his clothes off with one of the guy's wives who's going to burn them. Okay? That's the plan. Meanwhile, Yusupov and one of the other conspirators are still there at the house. They go into a room, they light up a couple of congratulatory stogies. All right, man, we did it. We did it. That's all right. Yusupov excuses himself. He says, I'm going to run over and check on something in my parents' rooms. I'll be right back. Instead of going to his parents' rooms, he goes back downstairs and stares at the body. Now, we know this because Yusupov recounted this to us, but we don't really know why. We can suppose some things from other things that we have written and other accounts. Yusupov is a dandy, which in that time is a nice way of saying Captain Fancy Pants. He's highly interested in his appearance. He enjoys the company of other men. He is a dandy. And there are suppositions that he has made homosexual advances towards Rasputin, that perhaps he was as fascinated by Rasputin's eyes as the ladies were, and has been spurned, because we know very clearly that Rasputin was not interested in homosexual intimacies. So, for whatever reason, Yusupov goes back downstairs and he's staring at the body. And he just kind of loses control of himself. And all of a sudden he's like, ah, and shaking the body and just, ah, rah, rah, and then just goes, and throws it down. He's like, all right. Yeah. And he's still standing there looking at the body, and Rasputin's laying there, and the left eye opens, and then the right eye opens.
Oh.
Think about the surprise you just felt, and imagine being there in the room having just shaken him, right? And Yusupov's just kind of like, I mean, you wouldn't be able to move either, right?
Poison.
Other than perhaps to wet your pants. And then Rasputin leaps to his feet and lunges for Yusupov. Gets him around the throat and is choking. Choking and choking and choking. And the whole time he's choking, he's saying, Felix, 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 Felix. And Yusupov's like, fights him off, loses one of his epaulets in the process.
Oh.
Yusupov at this point has regained his powers of motion and runs back upstairs. And he comes running out of the hallway upstairs. He's like, oh my God, he's alive. And the other guy's like, what? Alive? No, what? They all seen him dead. They stripped him naked. Okay? Rasputin is not a small man. Yusupov kind of is. So he's been being strangled to death in a basement room by an incredibly large Russian mystic holy man in the nude. Runs upstairs. He's trying to explain this to one of his co-conspirators. His co-conspirator's going, what? And then the co-conspirator hears footsteps on the staircase. And he's like, hey? And then he hears the door close out to the courtyard. And he's like, So he pulls his revolver out and runs to the door to the courtyard. Gets out into the courtyard and sees Rasputin, and I won't say running, let's say moving rapidly across the courtyard. Tall, naked, Russian mystic with a gunshot wound to the chest, running across the courtyard, lightly falling snow. And he's yelling, Felix! Felix, I'll tell the Tsarina! Felix, I'll tell the Tsarina! Co-conspirator's like, oh, this has got to stop. Pulls out his gun. He thinks he's a pretty good shot. Pops off 2 shots. They both miss. Felix, I'll tell the Tsarina! Boom! 3rd shot hits him in the shoulder, stops him. Boom! 4th shot takes him down. Okay, got that handled. Yusupov comes around the other corner of the courtyard, claiming that he's gone around the other way to cut Rasputin off in case he made it to the street. He was freaking out. Think we got away with it. Except 4 gunshots outside in the middle of the night on a crisp winter early morning. A light snowfall. That sound carries. Ding dong. Uh-oh. Yusupov goes to the door. Police officer. Hello. I think I heard some guy. Oh, yeah, man. We were having a riot. It was a party got way out of hand. We were all toasted, man. One of my buddies shot my dog. Policeman's like, oh, all right. Crazy nobleman. How they spend their nights. And goes back to his post. 15 minutes later, Yusupov's manservant appears back at the policeman's post and says, hey, would you come back to the palace with me? They go back to the palace. This is where it starts getting stupid. Okay? Getting back to the palace, set the policeman down. They're like, do you love Tsar in your country? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Then, if you truly love the Tsar in your country, you're going to keep what I'm about to tell you to yourself. Okay. I love him. I'm a counselor of state, and I've just killed Rasputin. Huh? Okay, I won't tell anybody. All right, then. I did it for the Tsar in the country. It's good. Okay. Counselor of State is a very high-ranking nobleman. Could probably have the policeman disappeared with the snap of his fingers. He's also related to the Tsar. All of these conspirators but the doctor are. 20 minutes later, the policeman is making a full report to his superior. Superior says to the policeman, yeah, they're playing with you. You got to understand these nobles. They are weird. They are weird. They're probably just testing your loyalty to see if you're going to, tattle on them about stuff. They just made that up. Nobody is going to kill Rasputin. Kidding me? Go back to work. Policeman goes back to work. At 5:30 in the morning. Oh, wait, I skipped a step. So Yusupov's done dealing with the policeman. They've brought the body in from the courtyard. It's laying there in the hallway. The 3 guys who went to take Rasputin's clothes and make it look like Rasputin was going home, one of them had a blackjack in his pocket. Blackjack is like a little leather billy club filled with sand or maybe heavy rocks and sand. It is a potent little device to use. It's not real long. It's a good beating device, a good self-defense device. sitting there on a hall table. Yusupov, can we agree, has been good and thoroughly freaked out by this time? So here's Rasputin's dead, naked, bloody, snow-covered body laying in his hallway. Closes the door after having lied to the policeman, and then having told the policeman the truth and sending him on his way. Here's this body. Freaks out again, grabs the blackjack off the table, and is just down, beaten about the head and the neck. Yeah, I want to make sure he's good and dead. I mean, he already resurrected himself from the dead once. By the way, the co-conspirator who shot Rasputin when he ran across the courtyard to look at him delivered a hearty kick, a full-on kick with his boot to Rasputin's left temple. Okay? It's good and caved in. So, here goes Yusupov. They pull him off. 5:30 in the morning, the other three had gone to do this subterfuge come back. Okay, here's Rasputin. They hear the story, they don't quite believe it themselves. They wrap him up in canvas and throw him in the car. And four of them, no Yusupov, he's clearly cracked beyond help at this point. He's got to stay home. He's leading the cleaning efforts at home. So the four of them load Rasputin in the car. On the way there, they discover they've still got his boots and coat. The wife had decided that the boots were too nice and new to burn, and she didn't want to unstitch the furs from the coat to burn in. So they're like, well, we'll just bundle them up with the body and it'll all go into the river, it's all good. So they drive through this snow, which is beginning to accumulate pretty well now, to a bridge over the river. They stop, they get out and they drag the body out. Two guys on each end, they're like, okay, here we go. The parapet on the bridge is like 4.5 feet high. Here we go. And they get stuck on the parapet. Okay. All right, here we go. Give it all you got. And they hear the splash and realize at that instant that they forgot the chains and the weights to hold the body down under the water. Oops. Well, nothing we can do about it now. Back into the car. Let's quick hope nobody saw us. It's 5:30 in the morning in the middle of a Russian winter. The sun is not coming up. As they're leaving the bridge, their headlights hit the sentry booth. Okay, they got away with it. Nobody saw them. They drive back to the palace. Get to the palace, they discover there's blood on the seat cover from Rasputin, and one of his boots is still in the car. Okay, well, let's go have those burned then. Go to bed. Yusupov's got to take his exam tomorrow. Everything will be fine. In the meantime, the police supervisor has passed the report on up the line, as improbable as he believes it to be. The ultimate head of the Russian police is, of course, the Tsar, but between him and the police is the Minister of the Interior, a fellow we know by the name of Protopopov, Rasputin's friend. He gets to the office, he gets this report. Uh-oh, that can't be right. He runs to inform the Tsarina and start the investigation. They go to Rasputin's home. The maid reports having seen Yusupov leave with Rasputin around midnight. Says, yeah, I think I maybe heard him come in, but he's not here and neither are his clothes. I don't know where he is. Okay. So they go to Yusupov's palace. Yusupov's like, oh yeah, that party last night, it was cray. See my dog? We've got him out here in the courtyard. Yusupov, to build the story up, has taken one of his dogs and shot it through the open mouth in the courtyard to make the story more believable. I know. I think that would be one of the hardest parts of this story, too. The investigation reveals a whole lot more blood in the basement and trailing up the stairs and out into the courtyard than could possibly have come from this dog. There's also this set of tire tracks leaving from the front of the palace. They follow it through the streets to a bridge where it appears that it's stopped and there's lots of tramping of feet about. And they're looking around. Oh, there's a lot of blood over here on this edge of the bridge. I wonder. And they look over, and here's this hole in the ice and a boot laying on the ice next to the hole in the ice. It is not taking the BAU from Criminal Minds to solve this, is it? Okay. Nor do we need the folks from Law and Order Special Victims Unit. Dudley Do-Right could solve this mystery. You guys don't even know who Dudley Do-Right is, do you?
Yeah.
Never mind, Bullweasel reference. Okay, so they follow the car tracks all the way back to the palace. This is a distance of about 3 miles. What conclusions can you draw about vehicular traffic in St. Petersburg in December of 1916? Virtually none at all. One, not that many people have cars. Two, virtually none of them have gasoline or tires to be able to run the cars. Okay? Minor detail overlooked, huh? They weren't counting on the fresh snow. So, they get a guy who knows the river, and he says, oh yeah, it'll be down this way. So they go about 200 yards down the river, and sure enough, under the ice, here's Rasputin. So they cut a hole through the ice, they fish him out, they take him to a naval hospital about 3 miles outside of St. Petersburg. They let the daughters come in to see him. Oh, yep, that's Dad. That's Dad, yep. This is Rasputin when they fished him out of the river. Here's the fur coat wrapped around his legs. Here's his arms. He had to thaw for 24 hours before they could start the autopsy. The river in St. Petersburg is cold in the middle of December. Okay. The autopsy reveals water in his lungs. That is the only way to get water in your lungs is to inhale when underwater.
It's those cars.
Shh. Poisoned thrice, shot thrice, kicked in the temple, beat about the head and neck, and dies of drowning. However, the official record doesn't include the water in the lungs because by that point, the Tsarina had already announced that she wanted Rasputin to be made a saint. And in the Orthodox Church, there are rules against anyone who dies of drowning achieving sainthood. I don't know why. You'd have to go look into Russian Orthodoxy. I don't know. So, there you go. Now, has this all been pretty creepy? Creepy enough? I've got more creep for you. In the month before he died, Rasputin composed a letter to be delivered to the Tsar and Tsarina if he were to die. In that letter, he said he knew he would be dead by January 1st. He says, if I'm killed by a common assassin, especially one of my brother peasants, you and your heirs have nothing to fear and will rule for hundreds of years. If I am murdered by nobles, their hands will remain soiled and they will leave Russia for 25 years. Brothers will kill brothers. Civil war. Russian Civil War. They will hate each other. The Bolsheviks and the Mensheviks. And for 25 years, there will be no nobles in Russia. Communism, comrades, all equal, right? He goes on, quote, Tsar of the Russian people, if you have heard the sound of the bell which will tell you that Grigory has been killed, you must know this. If it was your relations who have brought about my death, then none of your family, that is to say, none of your children and relatives, will remain alive for more than 2 years. They will all be killed by the Russian people. They'll live about 18 more months. Rasputin is buried on December 22nd. The Tsar, the Tsarina, the children are all there. In March, after the revolution begins, the royal family is imprisoned. Once they're imprisoned, the revolutionary government gives the order to exhume Rasputin, disinter him. He's taken out and burned, and his ashes are scattered. So he who died in water, was buried in earth, was consumed by fire, and sent to the wind. In 1916, the year of his death, Rasputin had said to a journalist, "The fools don't understand who I am. A sorcerer? Perhaps. A sorcerer I may be. They burn sorcerers, and so let them burn me too. But there is one thing they do not realize. If they do burn me, Russia is finished. They'll bury us together." And when the Russian Revolution is over and the communists are in control of the nation, Russia does not exist. we have the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. Yusupov and his fellow conspirators are exiled from Russia for longer than 25 years. The royal family is shot by firing squad in the basement of a home they're being imprisoned in the middle of the night by the Russian people on the orders of the Russian government led by Vladimir Lenin. Their bodies are taken out. They attempt to burn them. They aren't able to get the fire hot enough. The sun's coming up. They want to conceal that this has happened, so they dump the bodies down a mine shaft and throw lye in on top of them. Later on, the bodies are pulled out and the skeletal remains are identified as the entire Romanov family, the doctor who accompanied them, the naval servant who was there to take care of Alexei, and the maid. One more creep element. When the firing squad went into the basement room where the family was, the women were seated, the men were standing behind them, and the order was given to fire, they fired. And it appeared to some of the men as though the bullets were bouncing off of the royal family. And they were all praying. Freaks some of those guys right out. They run out. There was a lot of confusion. They didn't have smokeless powder, so the room's all filled with smoke and haze. They emptied lots and lots and lots of rounds into the bodies of the royal family and their servants. They let the smoke clear. They went back in, and several of them were still alive, moaning and groaning. Some of the children had been shielded as the adults fell on top of them. So an individual shot was administered to each skull. When they stripped them down before they took them to bury them, they discovered why the bullets appeared to be bouncing off of them. Because the women had sewn all of the family jewels and wealth into their corsets and into the undershirts and vests of Alexei and the Tsar. And so literally the guns, or the jewels, were deflecting the bullets and protecting the royals to some extent. Freaky. I assure you that no direct descendant of that Romanov family is existing. None of the girls had a child. Anastasia did not exist. Disney is wrong again, but it's a nifty story. There are still Romanovs alive in this world, but they are descendants of Grand Duke Michael, Nicholas's brother, and other relatives who were further afield. The Romanovs who weren't in the immediate family, but who had remained in Russia, were rounded up and executed. Sisters, aunts, etc. So when Rasputin said no relative will remain, he was right.